This is Golden Years, a roadmap to navigate retirement with Mark Cordner, the podcast.
Now the election is over. Donald Trump, we know he's returning to the White House in just a few months here. What can we expect from the market? The researcher Ed Yardini tells CNBC that he believes the rally will continue.
The stock market's roaring because it's anticipating that we're going to get more tax cuts, that we're going to get deregulation, and that those will offset the negatives of some tariffs, clearly, and maybe more government spending. So it's a very fluid situation. But at the end of the day, I think the market's saying that the outlook is pretty good.
Okay. But the market really, it has been sitting at all-time highs. I mean, pre-election, post-election, that's the truth, right? So is it too late for investors to get in if they've been maybe holding back because of the election?
Oh, I certainly don't think it's too late. I mean, it's always the right time to get into the market if a person has long-term perspective. The reality is if we do anything in the sense of trying to time the market, then we're acting based on the wrong motivation. The reality is the stock market's been an incredible engine for growth. It has been for decades, and there's every opportunity to be optimistic there. I think we're certainly in an optimistic period right now. I mean, I think a lot of people are simply relieved to have all the tension of the election behind him, regardless of which side of the aisle they're sitting on. There is a lot of optimism in the market, and with investors, I'm hearing, certainly with the Trump tax cuts potentially being extended. That's certainly the expectation with both houses of Congress now under the same leadership. So it's going to be interesting to see how things play out. But, a big part of this is perception. And often, the president has a lot less to do with the market than people realize. And I'm speaking historically there. You go back and you do studies, and often the exact opposite of people's expectations played out. And so perception in life is a big thing. And I think, candidly, that's one of the great values that I'm able to offer clients is doing this for 30 plus years now and meeting with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of families. We're able to get a perspective. And often we're walking clients off an unnecessary cliff where they don't need to be there, but they feel like they do. We're taking our clients to an event out at the regional food bank, for example. And one of the reasons we do all these events is not only to have fun together, but we're doing good, we're doing service. That's giving people a thing to consider in their retirement, but it's also, again, giving perspective, perhaps a healthier perspective that things could always be worse. Wherever we're at, things could always be worse. And so sometimes we have to adjust our expectations. And that'll be the case with elections or any other shock to the economy or the world. That's just life, right? We just always have to course correct along the way. And my function is kind of to be a GPS of sorts for people. And I really love that because I certainly don't have all the answers. I don't have a crystal ball about the future, but I do have a perspective of, again, having talked to hundreds and hundreds of people. And I'm very optimistic about the future. I'm certain there's hard times coming, but I'm also incredibly optimistic about more glowing future than we've ever had in the history of humankind. I mean, just think about all the innovations and technological advances and scientific and medical advancements that are happening now. There is so much for us to be optimistic and grateful for. It's really good during the holiday season to keep that in mind. I read an article the other day that said many of the kings of England, with all their incredible wealth over the centuries, never lived a fraction of the comfort or lifestyle that the average American now does. And that's a good perspective to take.
Yeah, I could
Especially
agree with
since
that.
we're free from the King of England now, right?
Yes, exactly. But you're right. It's all about perspective and finding that silver lining in things. So, I mean, and when it comes to perspective of your retirement, we could sit here and all day and if and what, and, if this happens, crystal ball it basically with Trump being in office and what the market's going to do. But at the end of the day, that's not going to get us anywhere, right? If you want to have some sort of certainty, if you want to have some sort of plan in place, that's where, Mark, you come in. You say, hey, look, if the market continues to skyrocket and go up, fantastic. That's great for a lot of us. This is what your plan is going to look like. If you wake up tomorrow and the market's going the exact opposite way, it's plummeting down, this is how your money's going to be protected. And these are the plans and the terms we're going to set in here. And this financial roadmap, I think, is crucial to find that foundation and to get started. Tell me more about this, creating this roadmap to navigate retirement, this financial roadmap. Tell me how you put that together, Mark.
Well, it's a multi-step process, and it starts with a pretty in-depth questionnaire and a lot of questions of the clients. It starts with throwing stuff up on the whiteboards where we can see where clients are at, they can see where they're at, and then we can talk about where they want to go. There are absolutely common pitfalls in the road ahead, and we know this from history. And so things like the potential of taxes increasing, the potential for inflation, the great likelihood of healthcare problems developing in our future, there's sequence of return risks. There's a variety of risks that exist. And retirement planning really is about risk management more than anything. So we create a roadmap that addresses the common needs, for example, of first income planning, and then that risk management, the healthcare planning, the investment management. We certainly want to look at legacy issues, for example. So there's a variety of things that are addressed in this roadmap that we do. And we try to keep it simple. We try to keep it to a page, basically, where people can see a chronologically ordered to-do list of things they can do to improve, to help them get to their proper destination. And then we just meet, regularly, at least once a year. We're putting that information back up on the whiteboard, seeing, where are we at, what progress have we made, what changes are yet ahead of us, and how do we need to tweak things, because the world is different. There's new grandbabies, or sometimes there's a move, a loss of a job, a healthcare problem, a divorce, who knows what. There's all sorts of things that we have to adjust the roadmap for. And that's the beauty of life. It's a great journey. And money is the fuel. That's all it is fuel. And so we lay that roadmap out, we put it in writing for people, and then we adjust as we travel along the route.
You're exactly right. It's all about the journey, and the destination, of course, being retirement. If you want to find out how you can get there, with the least issues possible, allow Mark to sit down with you, put together this financial roadmap, allow him basically to be your financial GPS, if you will, help you navigate maybe some tough areas of creating this roadmap. That website, mygoldenyearsroadmap.com. Mark, we've talked before about making catch-up contributions to your 401k. But now, thanks to a new law, you can make what they call a super catch-up contribution in 2025. So fill me in on what this is. How do I do it? How do you know if you're eligible? Give me all the details.
Well, this is an exciting new thing because Congress has acknowledged the fact that people, as they approach retirement, get to be anxious and they want to contribute more. And often, the kids have moved out of the home. People can focus more on future planning. And so what they've done is they've historically increased the amounts we're allowed to contribute to IRAs and 401ks. They've increased those on an annual basis. But this year, there's a new twist that's been put in there. So in the past, we could do catch-up contributions. So for example, in 2024, we could put $23,000 into an IRA, and we could add a $7,500 catch-up, get to $30,500 for those of us who are over the age of 50. And that was nice because the younger people can put a lesser amount in, but the older people can do that catch-up up to $30,500 to the degree they can afford it. Well, now what Congress has done is they changed the rules, and they said people between the age of 60 and 63. Now, I don't know why there's this 3-year window. That's a little weird to me personally. But what they've said is they can do a super catch-up. They can add even more to it. So instead of being capped at $31,000 in 2025, like most people over 50 will be, those people between age 60 and 63 can put up to $34,750. And so that's a nice boost. They can add to their savings. That's about a $300 increase on a monthly basis that they can add in. And once they hit age 64, then they're back down to the regular catch-up limit. So again, that super catch-up is just for this weird 3-year window. But hey, let's take every opportunity we can. I know that now is a good time for all of my clients, everyone out there, to review how much they want to defer in their retirement plans next year. For most people, that's a 401k. So in December is a good time to notify your custodian, the financial institution, and tell them, here's how much I want to set aside next year. I know that I max out my personal limits, and I'm going to update that for the new limits, do the same thing with my wife. And that just makes us that much better off. If you automate it, it makes it so much easier because then what you don't see, you can't spend, right?
Makes
so
sense.
We just immediately put it away into the future, and that gives us that much more security in the future to offset the things that we can't forecast. So this is a wonderful thing, the super catch-ups, and hopefully our listeners will go to their 401k plans and make adjustments accordingly. So we would invite people to come visit with us. If you don't really understand how your 401k privileges work, come talk to us. We can help you understand that. There are some provisions in there that require that catch-up contributions go into the Roth category for those who are above certain income limits. And if those ideas are foreign to you, again, come visit with us. We can help you with that. There certainly is a difference between pre-tax, traditional 401k or IRA savings, and tax-free. And our emphasis is always on tax-free.
This year, the average monthly Social Security benefit for retired workers was nearly $2,000. There was a recent article I read in MoneyWise that talked about the ways that you can actually lose that payment without warning in retirement. Number one here, not paying your taxes. All right. Number two, not making federal student loan payments. And number three, being in prison. Yeah, I think being in prison would probably impede some of things. Yes, exactly. Please avoid that. Another way to lose your benefits is if you exceed something that they call the earnings test limit. So, Mark, first of all, what does this mean? Is it something we should be concerned about? Explain.
Well, it absolutely is something that people should be conscious of because many people choose to work to age 67 or 70 now. People are revising from that old age 65 assumption that had been around since 1890, frankly. So people are thinking a little bit differently. And the reason this is important is most Americans actually claim Social Security as early as they can, which is age 62. Or earlier than the Social Security system thinks they should. So, for example, people born after the year 1960 are expected to claim Social Security at their full retirement age of 67. Well, if you're continuing to work until 67 or later, and you've taken Social Security before that time, then they actually hold back a portion of your Social Security benefit if you exceed these earnings test limits. And so the limit right now is $22,320. During those years between 62 and 67, or the year you turn 67, actually, they bump the limit up to 59,000 and change. The basic idea is that they're holding back a portion of your Social Security with the intention of giving it to you later after your quote-unquote full retirement age, which, again, for people born after 1960 is age 67. So you need to know what your full retirement age is and compare that to how long you plan on working and then determine when you're going to claim your Social Security. And so what we want to do and what we should do are often two different things. So when people don't understand Social Security, we always say, come talk to people who do. I've gone through hundreds of hours of training in Social Security, and I hate it, frankly. I even have people myself on, well, there just are so many exceptions to rules and different ways you can claim. I mean, literally, there were hundreds of ways, over 500 different ways married couples could claim previously. And then
they don't make it easy.
Yeah, they started cutting down these loopholes. So I actually have experts on retainer myself. So if I get stumped on a question, I can go to experts to get dependable advice for people.
I want to just reverse a little bit about Social Security, because I know a lot of folks are thinking, well, wait a minute, why do I need to call Mark and sit down with him and his team and all the people? Like, can I just ask the people at the Social Security office? Shouldn't they be able to help me?
Yeah, well, there's two elements to this. I mean, the one is the Social Security people are only allowed to tell you what your immediate benefit is. They're not allowed to tell you what all these other alternatives are. And there's an old expression that, if you go to Social Security and speak to two people, you'll get three different opinions. So, you just got to take things in stride there. But the other issue to consider is this is, as you said, more complicated than meets the eye, because we have to recognize that Social Security benefits are taxable now. They weren't prior to 1983, but they're not entirely taxable. And because the whole benefit is not taxable, that means that source of income is actually preferred to other sources of quote-unquote ordinary income that is fully taxable. And so to the degree Social Security can be deferred into a larger benefit, that means that portion of our future retirement income is more tax advantaged than perhaps other sources of income like a traditional 401k savings. So there's issues beyond just how much am I going to get and how quickly can I get it. There's absolutely issues when we're talking to married couples where there may be a spouse who perhaps hasn't worked as long. I think of my mother who spent many years home raising the kids, worked part-time here and there to help us pay for, piano and singing lessons and things like that. But when she finally went to work in her later years, it was more out of a passion she had for selling World Book encyclopedias and books to children.
Right, yeah.
But she didn't make a lot of money doing that, and so her Social Security benefit was not great. But because she had been married to my dad for 10 years, more than 10 years, put up with him for more than 10 years, she had what they call a spousal privilege under the Social Security system, which means that not only would she get her normal benefit based on her work earnings, but she would also be able to queue up, as it were, increase her benefit to half of what his benefit would be. And so he would have his full benefit, she would have half of her benefit. Well, that's the kind of important planning to be aware of. And perhaps more importantly is the fact that if my mother had outlasted my dad, she didn't, she passed first, but if she had outlasted my dad, she would have had a choice between keeping his benefit or keeping her smaller benefit. She could have one or the other. She couldn't have both. Obviously, she would have taken his higher benefit, but that would mean an immediate 1/3 reduction in her household income. And that comes as a tremendous shock to most widows. So yes, there are things that most people don't know about Social Security. And yes, we've dealt with it for more than 3 decades now, so we can help people.
Now, this is interesting, Mark. Follow me here. Did you know that if larger companies, they intend to lay off employees, they have to inform the government first? I never knew this. This information then appears.
I never heard that.
Yeah, for lots of folks, they're about to write this website down. The information then appears on the website warntracker.com before the expected layoff is going to happen. So imagine the kind of stress that would cause. I mean, if a client is nearing retirement, they fear being laid off, how can you help prepare in the case that happens? I mean, a lot of folks, let's face it, in the past couple of years especially, they've sort of been forced into retirement with a layoff.
Oh, absolutely. And certainly during COVID, we saw that. We certainly saw it back in 2008. This is really interesting. I never heard of this website before. Kind of fascinating, a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's nice to know in advance for planning purposes. On the other hand, who wants to live with that anxiety, as you said?
Yeah.
I personally would like to know, because the future problem is a present problem in the sense that if we know it's coming, we can deal with some things now if we're willing to. And you're absolutely right. It's a very large percentage of Americans who retire earlier than they expected. I've read statistics that say upwards of 1/3 to 40% of people retire earlier than expected. In other words, not always on their terms. It could be an employer's decision. It could be just a natural health issue that develops that causes people to prematurely have to leave the workforce and often never make it back in. And so this is one of the reasons that we're such sticklers about helping our clients make sure that they have emergency funds. That's, I think, a critical thing. Maybe 3 or 6 months worth of living expenses that they have set aside, totally liquid, sitting at the bank, totally accessible. That's one way people can prepare. Another is to simply just learn to start modifying expectations. And so maybe we go through like a retirement readiness exercise in the family and we decide to live on a lesser amount, X amount every month. We can do some things like that to kind of prepare for those bad luck scenarios, as they were, kind of cut monthly expenses voluntarily to see what it would be like. It can give clarity. We find that people who do this often realize that they don't need to spend remotely as much as they thought they did, and they can perhaps choose other activities, be it nature walks, exercise, and whatever it is. It doesn't necessarily have a lot of expenses, volunteering. There's a lot of things we can do that don't require a lot of expense of us. So yeah, this is really interesting website that you've mentioned. I would tell people, let's not live in fear. To the degree we're prepared, we don't need to live in fear. And if people have anxiety about these issues, if it's not medical anxiety, if it's just financial anxiety, I can help on that. I can't help on the medical things, but hey, on the financial issues, we can certainly give a perspective and teach some ways to prepare, put some guardrails in place so that when these bad luck circumstances happen, and they will, because that's just the nature of life, then we're prepared. We can survive it. When it catches you off guard, then that's when it's unfortunately way too stressful and painful.
Investment advisory services offered through Golden Years Financial LLC, a registered investment advisory firm. Insurance is offered through Golden Years Insurance Services. These firms do not provide legal or tax advice. Consult your own legal and tax advisors before taking actions that may have tax implications. Investing in securities involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Insurance contracts principal protection is based on the claim-paying ability of the respective insurer. None of the information contained on this website shall constitute an offer to sell or solicit to buy a security or insurance product. The information and opinions contained on this site or requested from this site are provided by third parties believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. They are provided for informational purposes only and are not a solicitation to buy or sell any of the products mentioned. Any media logos and or trademarks contained herein are the property of their respective owners, and no endorsement by those owners of Mark Cordner, Golden Years Financial, or Golden Years Insurance is stated or implied.